Um, I am an anthropology student, so I'm not a design student, so this class was new for me, but it was great. So I was not assigned to a specific project, and I'll kind of go over why that happened, but I'm just going to do a brief overview of design thinking and how it was integrated as something that we were taught and also something that we were able to think with. So week one, Tammy and Ashley introduced the class. We did an activity which I thought about throughout the entire semester, which was this activity right here. We were supposed to close our eyes, think of a time where we were impacted with water that day, tell it to our partner, go back, hear their stories, and then prototype something that would impact their story. So I believe I worked with Ivy, and she told me a story about a river that was becoming polluted, so I remember drawing something that would help with that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but so this was a 45-minute activity where we would get feedback from our partner, go, prototype again, get feedback from our partner, go, ideate, and then feedback and back and forth and so on. So this activity kind of was what we did for the entire class, was get feedback from LCCS, go back, prototype again, get feedback from LCCS, get feedback again. So week two, we went over Mindstorms, which goes over how technology can aid education and children's learning capacities. We traveled to LCCS and did work with them. We did the activity that we had done the previous week, so on water, thinking about this emotional situation that we had with water that day, and then had them prototype. So these are some of the original drawings and then actual prototypes that they had made during this activity. So week three, we went over systems thinking, and we made system maps of kind of where we were integrated in the class with our relationships with LCCS and the Baykeeper, and then where in a larger scale of Earth and Earth Day and society as a whole, where pollution fits in, where microplastics and stuff fit in. So again, we made system maps, and then we went back, prototyped, got feedback from whoever we were working with, and then prototyped again. So week four, we used the prompt, what is teaching, and then teaching is, to explore how our ideas about teaching and working with the LCCS students has changed that. We went to LCCS that week and did the same activity that we had done the previous week of systems thinking. So each week when we had done an activity, we went back and the following week and then did it with LCCS. So they were doing the same things that we were doing every week. So we were being both student and teachers in our own studio and at LCCS. So week five, we kind of went over different keywords, and then we made narratives. So this is, we first brainstormed on a bunch of note cards, different words that have to do with pollution and Earth and LCCS and our relationship, and as many words as we could within like a 20-minute period. And then we broke off and worked in small groups going over narratives like surrounding these keywords. So Chris and I were paired up, and this is where our project of Weighing the Wave was kind of made. We wanted to take a narrative that was from the point of view of water. So instead of it being humans trying to clean up pollution that would go into the water, we wanted it to be from the water's perspective of how he or she feels as something that is polluted and their home is polluted. So the Weighing the Wave plot kind of worked as an interactive story where Wayne would first realize that his home is being polluted by a garbage patch. He then goes to his son's house, William, which is near an oil rig, and they talk about how he's always heard these stories about how oil spills happen, and then they're hanging out one day and there is an oil spill, so then they have to go to their granddaughter's house where there's boats over fishing. So it's all these different ways that that the ocean is being polluted. So our takeaways were kind of activism and community involvement. In the end, the waves kind of clean up the beach with the surrounding animals and nature. They work together, very anthropomorphized. And then it kind of promotes the community to get a head start on cleaning up the beach and keeping their beaches clean. So just as a side note, some of us could not go to LCCS every week, which I was one of those. On week 6, we presented our prototypes and team narratives. This is kind of where Agent came up a little bit. And then at LCCS, we presented these working narratives again. And we worked with them on creating their own narratives. And then this is where the sticky note activity, where everybody had their own ideas and we voted on them, was done. So week 7, we got feedback from the Baykeepers after presenting our ideas to her. Tammy worked with us about really honing in on our takeaways and how we could implement these projects at Earth Day for 10,000 people and all these kids, and how could they realize that they could make a difference for water pollution. So at LCCS, we again worked on the list of projects, and we ended up voting on the final 4 Earth Day projects, which were Hydrangea, Trash Stalker, John the Vegan, and Agent. So sadly, Wayne the Wave was not picked up.
We're all sad.
Yeah. So up to this point, we had spring break. The class was a little bit of a roller coaster, going up and down, prototyping, and then not having projects that were working out and that we had worked really hard on. By week 5, at least for me, it felt like we should have had been further than we were and already had projects picked, but this is the design process. That's kind of what happens, is you get feedback, work together on a new prototype or a new idea, and then continue on. So we had a lot to accomplish for the following weeks, but we knew that we could look forward to Earth Day, and yeah. So weeks 9 and 10, there was major production during these days. Just as kind of like an outsider, seeing all the projects come together was really amazing. And as someone who is not a design student, it was really cool to see how you guys all make these things happen, because it goes way over my head. And the kids were really interacting with the projects, so they were really in charge of making these tangible projects that you could see coming together for Playtech and Earth Day. So at Playtech, each group set up their project. Some of the projects went really well. I know Hydrangea had a little bit of problems with the projection on the dome, but I mean, all these kinks had to be worked out for the next week. But there were a really good number of participants for each project. So this week we focused on fixing problems that we encountered during Playtech. These are the awesome posters that Ivy just presented on, but that we had worked on with her that week. The class was more logistics of what needed to get done, who needed to bring what to Earth Day, when you needed to be there. We did not go to LCCS this week, but there were emails sent along to the teachers at LCCS to kind of delegate tasks to the students to make sure that they were doing what they needed to be done for that Saturday. And then Earth Day. So the projects seemed like they were really engaged with. There was really long lines from the photos that I saw. The takeaways seemed to be a lot more clear and concise for each project than in the beginning. The students from LCCS were really excited to show off their work and really show that they had done all of this work with the Parsons students. So I mean, of course, there's always room for improvement. That's what design thinking is. It's a constant reevaluation and transformation of projects. So with feedback comes these improvements. So just my final thoughts about the class and design thinking. So I'm really happy I took the class. It was very different from any anthropology class I've ever taken, so kept me on my toes. Collaboration and feedback was really key throughout the semester. There were some amazing ideas, and although some ideas were great when they were thrown out, of course they're not always going to be picked. The design thinking process allows for continuous change and transformation. When you're working on projects that can really impact the user, it seems like this is really important. So focusing on design thinking and systems thinking helped me and the students to think of where we exist in a really narrow view, and also as a larger view of where we can make an impact in the world. I appreciate the process more now than I did during the semester. I thought it was really hectic, but I mean, that's the process. So one last point that I really wanted to make was the impact of technology. So technology wasn't used in a lot of the projects right away. It was more of a physical construction through paper. So I thought that was really important because it shows how important, I mean, like pens and papers and physical things like that are technology, and that's sometimes what students only can access. Sometimes it's not a Google Cardboard or things like that. So I thought it was important for the students to realize that they can make really cool projects from things that they had at home. The LCCS students were able to tangibly make something that they were really proud of and understood. It allowed them to be both teacher and student and present something that they worked hard on. I think it allows students to become more dynamic and successful in their studies. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot to take in.
Yeah, sorry, that was a really.
Well, you guys are all amazing. First, Agent, thank you so much for having me today, and you and Tammy and Ash for inviting me, and to all of you for telling me your stories. I think it's really important work to be done and engage with the younger generation, both about the environment, but also about just kind of opening their mindset in terms of how they can think about these things, and just making an impact on and really giving them agency. So what I thought, like in this final project, first of all, it's very nice to wrap it up and kind of have an understanding of the weekly progress. I think one thing that you may consider is to have this more like as a timeline. It was nice to see it slide by slide, but also kind of being able to see, and I think it will be helpful in future iterations to know, okay, what happened in between week 1 and week 3, and it doesn't have to. It's not always, things are a little bit more fluid. And then, by week 6, it's really important to, have the project sort of emerge, the main project. So I thought like something that, sort of as a reflection on that process, kind of like that would have added to understanding of how things work out this semester, but also could be a great tool as others start to plan those type of activities. And then each of you on your projects, and it was kind of interesting. I think Tammy, you asked like, oh, do you have the brainstorming session, sort of the early sort of the startup moment. And I thought that, yeah, I think if you have it, it would be nice to kind of say like how the idea first emerged. How it developed over time, because you all have some artifacts and some kind of things in the making of, and sort of the final project. And I think this will be very useful for the students to see, the teachers and the students themselves, to kind of like think through their own thought process, and gives them an opportunity to step away now that they've been super engaged in the making. It gives an opportunity to kind of like step away and think about this, and see themselves as just kind of cool creators and cool constructors of knowledge and cool designers, and especially at that age is incredibly powerful. And so I'm just at awe of what you've been able to accomplish. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for coming.